right. Our 2021 theme is Choose to Challenge. Good morning, E3. And as we get started here, I will remind you of our mission, which is to engage, educate, and empower our learning community to be caring, passionate lifelong learners and civic leaders prepared for college, workforce, and life. And so the word caring is tied to choose to challenge. Choose to challenge is a theme for this year, which is a message of solidarity and allyship. So that means we stand together for what is right and we support women. We are allies with all who struggle. It highlights the roles that all identities can play in challenging norms, stereotypes, and biases. All right. And so we want to celebrate women's achievements, raise awareness against bias, and then let's change the narrative, the reality, and let's all take action for equality. So a short video on that.
Gender is a pre-written book. And the plot is boring. Daughter, girlfriend, mother, wife, rip out the pages, staple them to your back, and start soaring. Pretty, quiet, weak. They will try to describe you with such things, but you will use their stereotypes and turn them into your wings. When you choose to challenge. Gender is a pre-written book, but not all the girls' stories end the same way. 33,000 girls are forced to become child brides every day. 132 million girls are not in school, and their futures are balloons that they watch drift away. But you are the full stop to the story. You are the new sentence that takes it on a different road. When you speak up, you open your palms and you share the load. When you choose to challenge. Gender is a pre-written book, but not all of the characters are included, like the First Nations women, who stand as still as statues, always walk past but never acknowledged or seen, or migrant women, whose culture stands like a skyscraper, and they're forced to burn down the parts of themselves society doesn't deem convenient, or refugee women who are treated with brutality when we should have been lenient. And you are there as this story unfolds and you are faced with a choice. So choose to challenge. Gender is a pre-written book. And this is your chance to add your own chapter, to call out racism and sexism, and use courage to rub it out, to stand where the rest of the world has chosen to sit. To call it out at home, at work, at school, bit by bit. To scream where the world has chosen to whisper, not just for your daughter, your mother, or your sister. Let us choose to challenge. Gender is a pre-written book. And if you're listening to this, then your actions are the pen, your life is the paper. You are not the oppression of the past. I believe that you are so much greater, stronger, kinder. Choose to create history, not to be created by it. Choose to challenge.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I lost this here. Okay. All right. So just think about that while I bring back up the right screen. Okay. Honoring women who paved the way. I understand that there's a little bit of an echo here. I'll try to figure this out.
I have big ideas. I'm going to be a doctor.
I am fearless.
I want to heal the sick. I'm going to make a difference.
I want to tell stories. I love adventure.
I have compassion. I can do anything I want to do.
I am a trailblazer.
I want to discover new things. I want to create change. I believe in justice. I want to explore the universe.
I want to fly.
I want to do something no one else has ever done.
I believe girls can do anything.
I want to change the world.
I'm going to make history. This is history.
Okay. What women empowerment is about. I'm going to turn over to Francesca to read what women empowerment is about. Francesca?
Hi. Okay, so what women empowerment is about, it's about promoting a sense of self-worth, having the ability for women to make their own choices, and having the right and ability to influence social change. And lastly, ensuring the health, safety, and well-being of all women. And it's about uplifting and creating equal opportunities for all women.
All right, thank you. So let's take a moment to think about what Francesca just said. And girls, go ahead and take a look at this. The 5 bullets. All right, did you know, and Francesca's going to help me out with this, 33.9% in 2019, that was the percentage of women 25 and older who had earned bachelor's degrees or higher, compared with 32.3% of men in 2010. 28.5% of men 25 and older had a bachelor's degree or higher, while 27% of women had completed this level of education. Francesca?
81.6% is the percentage of female full-time year-round workers over 16 years median earnings compared to the men in 2019. In 2010, women earned 78.6% of what men made.
All right, so we were short of what men were being paid for the exact same job. Politics, according to the new data, women occupy the role of heads of state or government in 22 countries, up from 20 countries in 2020. As of January 1st, 2021, 5.9% of elected heads of state, 9 out of 152, and 6.7% of heads of government, 13 out of 193, are women.
And in the workforce, in terms of power and decision-making, women held only 28% of marginal positions globally in 2019, almost the same proportion as in 1995. And only 18% of enterprises surveyed had a female chief executive officer in 2020.
All right, so we have work to do in politics, becoming heads of state, and also in our managerial positions. This week, we had the president's address. President Biden addressed the Congress, and what we saw behind President Biden was the first woman vice president, and also the Senate or the House Majority Leader, Nancy Pelosi. And so that's the first time in history we saw standing behind a president giving an address to the Congress at the Capitol, who were women. So we are making progress, but we have a lot of work to do. And we need not just women, but also our allies to help this happen. Okay. So we have a guest speaker with us today, and she's one of the strongest women that I know. And she is showing us how to pave the way and create new opportunities. She understands what is happening in the world. She started her own nonprofit foundation to address the issues, the injustices, the the issues that come up when we have national crises and countries or segments of countries go into a crisis mode. Her organization, the Anita Mondretti Foundation, is there to help. And so that's just part of her work, and that's her latest addition to all that she does. And so we're going to hear from her today. When there's a tsunami or an earthquake, her organization is there to help women, schools rebuild. And so I just talked a little bit about the foundation, but it's the Anita Mendarata Foundation, the Anita Mendarata Foundation. And she is the founder and president of the, and also Anita Mendarata Foundation and Associates Global Advisor and author. So she is a global advisor. She works with countries around the world, and she has authored several books and also many, many articles. So she's committed to tourism and development, and she is a tourism and development practitioner. She's the founder again and president of the Anita Mendarata and Associates Foundation. It's a London-based international consulting firm. She is also honored to serve as special advisor to the Secretary General of the United Nations, the World Tourism Organization. She works closely with leaders in governments, businesses, and international organizations across the tourism, aviation, and development sectors. Anita is globally respected as a strategic advisor and 6-time published author. Anita began her professional career along a blue chip corporate path, working in leadership positions in a number of Fortune 500 companies. So scholars, when we talk about the market, the stock market, the market follows the Fortune 500, that's the S&P 500, and we follow those Fortune 500 companies. And within one of the WPP's global consulting firms. Today, with over 2 decades of global professional working and living experience, Anita's hands-on cross-cultural, cross-industry experience in both public and private sectors has created an innate ability to feel the heartbeat of societies, and that she does. The economic, social, political, cultural, and environmental dynamics impacting and inspiring nations facing change, including confronting challenge. Importantly, with proven agility and acumen in mobilizing impact across diplomatic, governmental, and business spheres, Anita is highly sought after as both a strategist and advisor in the areas of national growth, development, and often recovery. Anita is increasingly called upon to be the bridge between government and businesses, assisting leaders to address conflict and find common ground to enable advancement of common agendas, breaking through areas of challenges to realize shared aspirations. Anita's international reputation as a confidant at the highest levels has become a sought after speaker, moderator, and facilitator. board member and coach for leaders and nations across the globe. And I know I've read it, but you really don't understand who this woman is, even with what I have read. She is a phenomenal, phenomenal woman. And we are so happy. We are privileged. We are honored. We are humble to have Anita in our presence today. So Anita, we want to just thank you 1,000 million times over for sharing your time with us today. And I've been shaking my head as I've been reading her bio, because it's all so true, and it's true to the like 1,000th power. So thank you for being with us today.
And I must say, first and foremost, happy birthday, Dr. Ward. Most importantly, this is the first time in a year of being on air I've ever seen the host and lead speaker of a program being interrupted to have balloons and a happy birthday message delivered. So I think that is very human and that is very classy, Dr. Ward. So very happy birthday. And thank you for this invitation. I am deeply grateful. I am deeply humbled, and I'm excited to be with you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And Ms. Bailon will be taking questions through the chat. So scholars, if you have questions along the way, please send those questions through the chat to Ms. Bailon. Okay, so I think I'm going to turn it over to Francesca, our scholar, who will ask the questions here.
Hello, so we just have a couple of questions for you to hear about all that you do. So firstly, can you please tell us a bit about your background and what you do?
Goodness me. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm very grateful for the introduction. Thank you for reading that, Dr. Ward. I appreciate that. And just for full disclosure, I was very blessed to have started a foundation 2.5 years ago. And I was smart enough to get one of the best educationalists and practitioners and hearts and minds in the entire world in making Dr. Ward one of my trustees. So she is a part of making sure that this organization really makes a difference at times of crisis when a difference needs to be made quickly and impactfully. So I thank you for that, Dr. Ward. I am from the tourism world. I started off my professional background, went to university in Canada, born and raised in Canada, and studied basically communications and marketing there. Started traveling around the world through Unilever, which is an FMCG company complementary to Procter & Gamble, and got hired by Unilever while I was in Southern Africa, and then moved through the corporate space in the marketing side of the world. I went from Malawi to the UK, from the UK to South Africa. I was then asked to join the Coca-Cola company. And then from there, so I went from IBM, Unilever to Coca-Cola, and then ultimately opened up my own business 19 years ago. I can take no credit for it. It was complete serendipity. I'm a big believer in acts of God. And the big thing I found in my career is that, and as Francesca, you and I were talking before we went live, sometimes the answers find you, you can't find them. So I would never have imagined that I would be doing what I am, but this is my absolute labor of love. When I went on my own 19 years ago, I had 2 rules. I wanted to do something that was my vocation, not my profession. I'm not doing it for the numbers, and I will only work with clients that I love. And those 2 rules has served me so well, because especially what I've been doing in the last 1.5 years because of COVID-19, you have to love what you do, because it forces a depth of energy and commitment and creativity that you can only find in the middle of the night when you've found your vocation. So what am I doing now, and why do I speak about that now? Every single country in the world relies on travel and tourism to some degree. Our industry, we're all travelers. I look at you beautiful women on the screen, we're all travelers. What we often forget is that 1 in 10 jobs in the world comes from travel and tourism. So you're going on a holiday keeps 1 in 10 people in the world employed. It feeds 1 in 10 families. It pays for school fees of 1 of 10 families. And when the world stopped a year and a bit ago because of COVID-19, it wasn't just that the world was no longer able to travel. 16,000 commercial aircraft were grounded. 100% of borders were sealed off. It's not just that the world couldn't travel. 160 million people lost their jobs. And if you think that's one person times 160 million families, that's the degree of loss that our industry has suffered and the global community has suffered. Behind all those jobs are business leaders, our heads of state, our heads of governments. They've all been terrified because our generation has never faced, we faced crisis before. We've faced terror attacks, we've had natural disasters, we've had economic collapse. We've never faced an invisible crisis like a pandemic. And as a result, it separates the personal and the professional. Whether it's Dr. Ward or Cheryl, she's at risk of a pandemic. And it makes us all very human. And when people are human, they struggle with fear. And so my business has been full-time, just helping leaders stay focused, stay moving forward, and give direction to the people they need to. So it's been intense. I think Dr. Ward has seen me in my plant all year. I don't know how many times, but again, it's been an absolute labor of love, and I would not have traded in one day.
So just touching back on how you got here, what was your path on to get where you are today?
Goodness, not straight, if I can put it that way. I was born and raised in Canada. I did my undergrad in Canada at McMaster University in Hamilton. I then literally went on holidays after I'd done a 1-year contract at IBM. I went on holidays to Malawi to visit my father, who was there with a university starting a school of architecture. I got hired by Unilever, which was complete serendipity, and then started traveling the world through Unilever. So I spent 7.5 years with them and then got hired by Coca-Cola. So a lot of my career path was through corporates and moving around the world with them. And that was beautiful because you're within the corporate business, but you're moving country to country and culture to culture, which is a real gift to be able to have the chance to do. And then when I was back in South Africa, the magic of South Africa was that it was just after liberation. So it was just after President Mandela was released. And I had the blessing to be able to help the government of South Africa rebuild itself. And I think the word I could use, Francesca, is that when you're asked to do something like that, it's addictive. You can't not help. And so that put me on my path, and that path has been a highway I've not been able to get off of for a long time.
So on that path, was there ever a time in your life when you had to challenge the world in a way to pave your future and help pave another woman's way?
I like the question. And I must admit, I loved watching the video that Dr. Ward put up front with the theme of 2021 for Women's Day about choose to challenge, because I think that's really important. But in my heart, as I was watching it, I thought that's 180 degrees of the circle. You have to choose to be challenged as well. And this year, I think, has done that because it's forced us all to stay home. It's forced us all to live through the screens. I haven't seen Dr. Ward in, 1.5 years, 2 years. I'm a hugger. I'm innately, as much as we can do this, I'm a hugger. We're mammals. And I'm a really big believer, Francesca, in the power of Mother Nature. She knows what she's doing. We were moving so quickly. Our world was growing so fast for some, not necessarily for others. We were traveling around the world. We were following our ambitions. We were following our passions. Sustainability, people they said they'd get to it. Poverty, will get to it. And then Mother Nature said, you know what? You're all moving way too quickly. You're going to get to it now. And she forced us all to literally stay home. She grounded us. She sent us back to our rooms to figure out what we've done wrong. And she challenged us. And what I have found magic about this year, in a painful way, it's not as if it's not an intended consequence, and there's been a lot of loss of lives and livelihoods and liberties. But I'm hoping that we don't waste this time and people come out of it being very clear on what matters. And so it's the openness of choosing to be challenged. This last year has been very uncomfortable, but we know very much who are the people we've missed. What are the things that we love that we haven't been able to do? What's the stuff we used to do that we don't need to really do anymore? Where were we wasting time, wasting money, wasting energy? Where do we actually now want to change the path going forward in terms of making our lives richer? And the richness is not necessarily about money. So what I have found is, when I was looking at the questions that were kindly shared, interestingly, I found the challenge is actually right now, because people keep talking about the travel and tourism crisis, and we have a crisis in travel and tourism, we have a crisis. And I said, no. We don't have a travel and tourism crisis. Our industry, literally, we were on a 5% growth rate every single year as an industry, which is huge. We lost 78% of our industry activity last year. 100% of borders were shut. And now we see India is just in the most devastating state where all we can do is pray. Their country depended on tourism, but importantly, and I find admittedly with people in my industry, this is not a travel and tourism crisis. This is a healthcare crisis and a humanitarian crisis. It has caused a travel and tourism crisis. It has caused an economic crisis. But we need to be really clear on the order of this. And this is where I have great respect for leaders at government level who have said, we're going to let the CDC and the World Health Organization and the healthcare community take care of things first. Because only when they say we are healthy can we get the health of our economies going again. So funnily enough, I found when I was looking at that in my entire career, the answer to your question is very much the challenge of now and getting people to recognize. And one of the, again, it's Mother Nature's magic. She's made it very clear, men and women are 100% responsible for creating the future because it's broken. Right now, in so many ways, our economies and our societies are broken. And unless everyone participates, no one wins. And I think that's, we talk about the word intervention. I think that's an intervention. And I think that's a good thing.
So with all the things that you've done so far, what is a way in which you've celebrated or have celebrated women's achievements?
I like this question because I always find the word that comes to my mind, Francesca, is champions. Everyone needs a champion. You know, people have mentors and they've got all the role models and the whole bit, but someone needs to be able to say, that Francesca, she's got something special about her. And it could be, as I told you earlier, I do not have a scientific brain, but I love talking to you. And when you talked about how you choose where you wanted to go next, you followed your heart. That to me says, I know Francesca's really brain smart, but she's heart strong. There's something special there. Champions are when people step up and say, you know, I'm going to keep an eye on Francesca and make sure she's got someone watching over her and clearing her path and backing her up. That to me has been the most important. So what I've loved is simply being blessed to be on the receiving end of that, but also on the giving end of that. And just finding people with no motive, no agenda, but just saying, that Francesca, there's something special there. We need to make sure that that blossoms and never stops being fed.
Thank you for that. And along with all the achievements and successes that people gain, what are some pitfalls that you've experienced or you think that us young people should avoid going into the future?
I must say I enjoy this question, and it can get me into trouble sometimes. And Dr. Ward, don't hold it up to me when we see next time. But unnecessary competition. I find it fascinating how little boys and little girls are wired differently. And I loved the fact that in that video, it's very much gender is a pre-written part of our story. And historically, you know, when I was a little girl compared to others, the way little girls are raised or were raised is very different than the way little boys were. Boys would compete in sport. Boys naturally compete in sport, whatever. Girls, it was always about the cutest, the prettiest, the smartest. And that basis of competition sets a wiring. We call it sibling rivalry, we call it mean girls, whatever we call it, but it's there. And I found one of the great sadnesses is when women don't support other women. I'll be very honest, because I think the greatest barrier is not men not supporting women. It's women stopping other women being supported. And I find that really sad, because I'm not a believer in, I've always believed, Francesca, if you want to create change, you have to do it from the inside, not from the outside. Because when we talk about getting women in the boardroom, we need more women in the boardroom, and I hear it all the time. If I'm a man in a boardroom and I hear a bunch of women banging on the door to get in, I'm not opening the door because I'm just scared. You need the man to open the door. And that means that women need to work together to bring the men within the group of women. I remember years ago, I was doing at EHL, École Hôtelière Lausanne, which is a hotel school in Switzerland. I was doing a guest lecture. And on the side, they asked me to do a session with the women, the female students. And they said, we're going to talk about women in leadership. So, right. So there was 30 of us in the room. And I was sitting there, and these girls were gorgeous, absolutely beautiful, between 19 and 24 years of age, just blossoming in their hotel careers. And I looked around the room and I said, who's missing in the room? And they looked around and looked around. And then one of them said, the boys. I said, you're absolutely right. Because the more we create the us and them, the more we embed the divide. So I'm a firm believer that if we want women to be embraced and supported as equals, we need to bring the men in to be able to champion why women need to embrace and support it as equals. And that goes again to the championing. So I'm a firm believer that I think women waste a lot of energy and opportunity by competing amongst themselves. So forgive me for saying that.
Okay, this is our last question, but do you have any other advice you can offer to all of us today? Heavens.
I always feel old when someone asks if I have any advice to give. I always think that at the end of the day, whatever we do, we'd be grateful. Again, we've had a really hard year of seeing profound loss, and everyone has missed. We started last year, and this time last year, I'm sure, Dr. Ward, there would have been rumblings around the world about COVID, so you probably canceled your birthday plans, and the world started moving on, and everyone in the world has missed a birthday, a wedding, a funeral, a memorial, a goodbye, a hello when a baby is born. Everyone has missed something. And if this year has not taught us the power of gratitude, nothing can. So I was just doing a panel discussion yesterday, and they were asking, what's your best advice in terms of sustainability? And we need to become more sustainable. What's your advice for people to become more sustainable? And I just said, just be grateful. Wastage happens when we take things for granted. Just be grateful. So I think we all have a chance to really squeeze so much possibility out of life right now, because we've all been forced to define what really matters. And that's a profound blessing. That's a huge blessing. So good has to come out of this time. It must. And that's why I find be grateful. And if you can just help one person. I love the quote from Dalai Lama when he says, the purpose of life is to help people. But if you can't help them, just don't hurt them.
Anita, that was just amazing. And the gratitude, people don't understand how important that is, but gratitude also makes you happy. When you are thankful and gracious, there's I don't know how to explain it, but there's an energy that comes with that. And it just makes you more grateful and thankful. And I just agree with you 100% that this is the time where we need to stop and be just thankful for all of the blessings that we have. And that throughout life, we also need to ensure that we continue to give thanks, to show thanks, and to show that gratitude, because it helps us, quite frankly, to be better human beings when we live in that space of gratitude. So I thank you for those words. And I thank you for the words around women. And you know, this is something that has come up recently at a women's empowerment luncheon that I attended, was that we cannot compete against each other. We have to support each other. We have to get out of this business of who looks cuter, whose hair is this, whose that is that, and support each other. We must support each other. And in doing so, we will also show men how to support us too, right? But we've got to support each other. We have to be about that business. So I want to thank you for those words. It's just, yes, thank you, thank you, thank you.
I'm going to throw in, if I can, Dr. Ward, a little tiny statistic, because one, as you know, with the foundation, one thing I've been finding fascinating is how we've all realized how much we have because we've seen how much people have lost. If you think of how many people have lost their jobs this year, they're all victims of circumstance. It's nothing that anyone did. It's that their business was shut down because the world shut down. And a group that I work with, Mary's Meals, which Cheryl, you're familiar with, we were talking recently. And did you know that international donations, especially for feeding programs around the world, went up 20% last year? And they were so fearful that they're losing jobs, losing money, getting insecure. No one's going to give. People gave more. Yeah. Because for the first time in our lives, everyone was in need. Yeah. So suddenly they recognized, wait a minute, I do have food in the fridge. Let me rethink that. Yeah. That's magic. And that's why I think it's not just the value of our world that has changed, the values of our world has changed. And Mother Nature's, she knows what she's doing.
She knows.
We're ready. Can we be let out of our groundings?
She knows what she's doing. She slowed us down to watch and see, to take note, and to move into action.
Exactly.
Yes. Anita, we thank you so very much for your time today. I personally know how valuable your time is and what you do for so many societies and people. So having you here today means the world to me. It means the world to us. And so we just thank you 1,000% over for that time. Your Women's Empowerment Next Steps. Ms. Baylone, if you can read these for us. And I want to thank Ms. Baylone for all of her work and back-end work in preparing for our Women's Day Assembly. Ms. Baylone.
Yes, of course. Our next steps, and this is for all of us, is to validate women's self-expression. Check your assumptions. Always ask questions. Don't just jump to conclusions. Offer support. Always be ready to lift up women, whether it be in class, at work, and just in life in general. And create a safe space. Oftentimes we don't feel safe, so we stay quiet in the corner. And going along with that goes for us women too, creating safe space for men to be able to participate in our communications and our agendas and activities and everything else that we want to accomplish. Bring women into the conversation because we know a thing or two, so include us. We're happy to share our wisdom and anything else that we can bring to the table. And prioritize women of color, trans women, disabled women, and all of them who are the most disenfranchised women among us.
All right. Thank you. All right, and scholars, I want to thank you. I want to thank our staff for joining us today. And of course, I want to thank our guest speaker, Ms. Anita Mandarata for her time today. And scholars, remember to choose to challenge. Choose to challenge. Have the courage to stand up for what is right. Have the courage to have your voice be heard. Have the courage to make a difference in life. And so we heard from Anita again today that your life, the reason for being is to make the world a better place. And so as we go through every day, our job should be to make that day better for not just ourselves, but others as well. So thank you so much for your time today. And I wish you all a wonderful afternoon. Remember to take care of you, take care of each other, and take care of E3. Bye-bye.